So, if you've spent any time at all in the world of modern web development, especially with something like React, you've probably heard the name Babel. It's one of those tools that just kind of works in the background, making everything run smoothly. But have you ever actually stopped and asked, what is it really doing? Well, let's pull back the curtain and find out. It's a weird question when you think about it, right? I mean, browsers are built from the ground up to understand and run JavaScript. So why in the world would we need something called a compiler for it? Well, to get to the bottom of that, we actually have to take a little trip back in time. Way, way back to the very start of JavaScript itself.
You see, our story doesn't start with complicated tools or frameworks. It starts with the kinda chaotic, super fast birth of JavaScript.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1995. A developer over at Netscape, Brendan Eich, invents a brand new scripting language for the web. But just 2 years later, Netscape makes a really smart move. They decide to hand over their new creation to a standards organization. And that one decision, it would literally shape the future of the entire internet. I mean, this early period was just a total whirlwind. Before they landed on the name JavaScript, the language actually had two other names. First, it was called Mocha, and then LiveScript. And this wasn't just about marketing, you know? It shows you just how fast the web itself was changing back then. So who did Netscape pass the torch to? This nonprofit group called ECMA International. Now, their whole job, their entire reason for being, is to create the official rules and standards for technology. This makes sure that things work the same way no matter where you are. You can think of them as the official rulebook writers for the tech world.
So once ECMA International took over, they gave the language its official grown-up name, ECMAScript, or as we all call it, ES for short. So yeah, whenever you hear developers talking about ES5 or ES6 or ES 2015, they're really just talking about the official versions of the JavaScript standard.
All right, so now we have a standard, which means everything should be simple from here on out, right? Not quite. Because what happened next created this huge gap, this divide in the history of the language. Check this out. After version ES3 came out in 1999, things just stalled for 10 whole years. There were basically no major updates to the language. Then, bam, in 2009, ES5 finally shows up, bringing some massive changes. And then, a few years after that, ES6 comes along and kicks off a whole new era of yearly updates, opening the floodgates to all sorts of new features. But that 10-year gap, that is the most important part of our story. And we're not talking about small little tweaks here. These new versions introduced fundamentally different ways to write code. Things like arrow functions or let and const from ES6, they drew a clear line in the sand. All of a sudden, you had old JavaScript and new JavaScript. And this super fast evolution, it created a giant new headache for developers, a problem that every single person who builds stuff for the web still has to deal with. So here's the deal. As developers, we get excited, right? We want to use all the cool, new, efficient features from modern JavaScript. But, and this is a big but, we have zero control over what browser our users have. Some people might be on the latest version of Chrome, sure, but others might be stuck on some old, clunky browser that's never even heard of an arrow function. So what do you think happens? When a browser sees a piece of syntax it doesn't recognize, it doesn't try to figure it out, it doesn't make a guess, it just gives up. Just look at this. On the left, you've got a nice, clean arrow function from ES6, and on the right, you have its equivalent in the old ES5 syntax. Now, to you and me, they do the exact same thing. But to an old browser, that little arrow symbol on the left might as well be complete gibberish. And the result? Your code breaks. That awesome application you spent months building is suddenly dead in the water for a whole chunk of your audience, and that is a huge problem. So how are we supposed to use all these great modern features without leaving people behind? Well, this is where the hero of our story finally makes its entrance. This is the tool that solves that great divide between JavaScript's past and its future. Okay, so Babel is a JavaScript compiler, but its job isn't what you might think. It's not turning your code into machine code. No, its job is to be a time traveler. It takes your modern, shiny, cutting-edge JavaScript and it translates it into an older, universally understood version that can run on pretty much any browser out there. And the process is actually beautiful in how simple it is. You just write your code using all the latest and greatest features you want. Then you run it through Babel. Babel works its magic and spits out an equivalent version of your code, but in that old, reliable ES5 syntax. And just like that, your application works for everyone, everywhere. Problem solved. But Babel does even more than just that. It's absolutely essential for frameworks like React because it also translates special things like JSX, which browsers don't understand on their own. It's the ultimate guarantee for backward compatibility, and that's exactly why it's automatically built into tools like Create React App. You're probably using it all the time without even realizing it. So we've covered a lot of ground here, right? From Mocha all the way to this big browser divide. But if there's one thing you should really remember about Babel, what is it? It's this. Babel is a bridge. It connects the fast-moving, innovative future of the JavaScript language with the messy reality of the web right now. It lets all of us innovate and write cleaner, better code without having to worry about leaving users behind. It lets us build for tomorrow, right now, today. Babel was the perfect solution for a really critical problem of its time. But as we know, the web never ever stops changing. So that leaves me wondering, what's the next great challenge? What problem will the next Babel need to solve?